Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Seeking What They Sought. I'm one of your hosts, Anthony Leiter, and welcome to video. Well, here we are, and this time we have a special treat for you guys. That's right, we are live in video today. Now, if you're just listening to this audio-wise, that's totally fine. We're going to have that up for you as well, so do not fear. But alas, you will be missing out if you are not watching this on video, because we have video this time for the first time ever, live in color, live in HD. You can't see me. I'm here in my my natural habitat in my room. You can see Aragorn over here in the background. Maybe my cat will make an appearance, Leo. Some of you have pointed out on Instagram how you can hear him sometimes in episodes in the background. Yeah, he's an occasional co-host at this point. But yeah, guys, we're really excited for this episode. We've never done one in video before, so this is exciting. We were all down in the same area, so we were able to actually record this episode all together, all in one room, for the first time ever since season 1. So that's really exciting. Today's episode we are stoked about, and we're excited to share because it's something that's near and dear to all of our hearts. We got the chance to sit down with our old friend Josh Jamieson, who we've had on before. A couple seasons ago, I believe, we had him on to speak about worship. And we had him on, and we were able to just sit down and kind of reminisce back to some of our undergrad college days and just talk about something that was really meaningful to us, a ministry that we were all a part of during that time called Circle Church. And it's something that we were able to be a part of during our time on the Walla Walla University campus while we were studying there. But it has since gone on and, eclipsed us. And yeah, we had the chance to sit down and chat a little bit about it. So we want to share that with you guys today, that conversation. But before we do, just want to once again, well, actually, first of all, just a couple announcements. Number one is merch. I'm sort of beating myself up because what I should have done in preparation for this video was wear the new merch, but I'm pretty sure I wore it like a week or two ago, and it needs to go in the laundry. So yeah, we have merch. That is an exciting thing. Yeah, we have t-shirts. They are in the link in our description in our Instagram, or they're on our website. You can find them easily. Just scroll down, you'll see them. And yeah, it's just like prominent picture of maybe Eric will put it in post. I don't know. I'm saying that now, adding more work to his workload. But yeah, it's just a picture of our beloved prophetess friend and leader Ellen White, who we have spoken about and we've had conversations about on the podcast, and we call her our friendly co-host because the whole idea of our podcast, right? Seeking what they sought. Who is they? They is our founders, and Sister White was one of them. So we have an awesome shirt for you guys, a little bit of merch. Proceeds go to support the podcast just so we can keep creating awesome content for you guys. And yeah, check that out. Link is in the description on the Instagram or on the website. Super easy to find. That's number one. Number two, just want to continue to thank you guys for staying engaged. Those of you who like, comment, subscribe, share. No, we're not a YouTube channel yet. Well, maybe this is the beginning. I think this is the beginning. But yeah, we just appreciate it. Like, we created a podcast just to have conversations that we thought that we needed, really, to be honest, to have. And it's just really cool that some of them are helpful and life-giving to you guys. So yeah, really means a lot. And so thank you all who comment, who leave reviews, and stuff. All of the above. And pertaining to reviews in particular, thank you for those of you who have left reviews. Appreciate it. Just want to reiterate again, would love it if you would swing on over to iTunes, leave a friendly review. We would appreciate it. Thanks so much. All right, enough chit chat. Let's dive into this episode of Seeking What They Sought.
Hey guys, welcome to Seeking What They Sought. This is weird for all of us this episode because we're in person.
This is wild.
So this is one of
this is a wild moment.
This whole time we've recorded this podcast, I think only once have two of us been in the same room, and then past that we've all been long distance.
3.
Was it
Yeah.
3?
Yeah. Eric, Anthony, and I at La Sierra.
Yeah, that was like one of our first episodes, and ever since we've been long distance, and so this is a whole new thing for us. But today this is Jesse. I'm Jesse. This is Eric. We got Sean and Anthony here.
I'm Sean.
This is because we're sort of recording on video, but anyways.
Yeah.
I'm Jesse. Anthony, introduce yourself.
Greetings, all. Hey, friends.
Sean.
Hi.
Yeah, Sean's over there, and then Eric.
It's just me.
It's just you. And then we're joined by Josh Jamieson, who's a good friend of ours as well. He was on the podcast a little while ago because he was we did an episode on worship.
Was that season 1?
I don't know.
Was that when was that?
I don't even
Keep
keep track.
It was season 2. It was a season 2 finale.
Wow, what a big deal.
Nobody cares.
What we had the opportunity to do this for the first time ever because we're all in the same area, and we're like, okay, we have to do this. And Josh is a good friend of ours, and we, as the 5 of us, there was this really amazing moment back in 2011, I believe. Was it 2011 or the beginning of 2012? I think it was beginning of 2012. And we were all in a room together, and we talked about starting what would become something called Circle Church, which was a student run. We were running this student run church on the campus of Walla Walla University. And so we figured, since we're all together, it's actually been 10 years since that moment. It would have been around this time that we had that conversation. And then we started in the fall of 2012 is when we started that.
Wow.
And so what we wanted to do was kind of reflect a bit on 10 years, and it's thankfully still going at Walla Walla, which is really cool. I don't think any of them know who we are. So maybe they know like a name, but like
they have no idea who we are.
We're just old men now. We had the amazing opportunity to work with a couple of other people on our core team, at least, along with a ton of volunteers, but 2 specific people, Judelle and Shelby, who were part of our core team. And they're not here. And we were talking about it because it's really funny because they're both women. And we're all guys, so this feels like we're excluding the women.
It's a boys only club. At least it feels that way.
This is only happening because all 5 of us are in the same place. So I just want to be clear that we're not sexist except for Sean. So yeah, you want to explain why you are sexist, Sean?
It's the beard.
You know what?
This is all nonsense, Sean.
I don't know what to say. Like, what? I'm just gonna dig a hole. Anything I say is just like
true.
I'll joke about. If I joke about it, then I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
But if I take it seriously, then it's like, oh, just loosen up. And
yeah, exactly. So
there's no positive direction.
I'm
to
here
go.
to help you dig your grave.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Got lots of thoughts for you after we finish recording.
I figured, so just one more bit of history before we get into it. So when we were on the campus of Walla Walla, we started in 2010. Eric started in 2011. Anthony came in 2011. He started his college the same year, but came in that year. And there was a student-run church happening on campus that kind of paved the way for everything that's happened since, called The Awakening. And that was going on. Was it 10 years? It was around 10 years.
It was around 10 years.
A decade. Yeah. When it ended in 2012.
So that bodes well for us.
Yeah, so 10 years. I think we started
the farewell
crash
tour.
And burn. So the reason I bring up The Awakening is because we came in feeling like that was the coolest expression of worship. It was this student-run church that had been like, it had like rock music, and it was just like lights, and it was a contemporary expression of church, and it was really cool. I remember Josh and I we played a lot of music, and we're like, that's where we want to end up playing. You know, like that was like the place, right? Yeah. And I happened to be working in campus ministries, and they told the campus ministries team in a meeting, they said, hey, I think we're going to be ending, and just because of a whole host of things. And that was the beginning. I remember hearing that. That was the beginning. So I remember I ran across campus after that. I got out of the meeting, and I think I at least jogged.
I'm just picturing Jesse running.
I run, Sean. It's you. I'm not sure if you run.
You're right.
I've seen you play like tennis and ping pong and stuff like that.
What do you mean?
But
you
outside of that,
you never remember me
ran like
going
a 10K,
for runs
I ran
all
with you
the
one
time.
Yeah, no, it's
$20
true.
says that Anthony can run faster than both of you.
Oh, whatever.
Probably over
I won't
like
explain why.
probably over like 50 feet.
The story of my life, I'm a bottle of untapped potential.
Anthony is surprisingly athletic.
I could be.
It's a dodgeball team.
True dodgeball.
This is also a dodgeball reunion.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
this is.
Except for Eric, we had Eric's wife on our dodgeball
True,
team.
Michelle was on our team. Why is that?
We won twice. We won the dodgeball thing twice.
Why did we look between the two of them and we're just like, Michelle?
Because Eric wasn't there.
Oh, he was
Eric
gone.
wasn't
He was
there
gone?
when we started off doing it, and then I think you weren't there the first time, like the first whatever week that was. So we asked you the next year, and then we needed a woman, and so we asked our friend Tiana, and then we played it, and then ever since then we were just like, this is our chance to exclude Eric.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
That's okay.
we won twice, didn't we? We won.
Did we?
No, we won
the competition?
once.
We won one
We're always
time.
I
very
think we made
close.
it close another time,
Yeah.
but we won it once.
So dodgeball. Anyway, so
Still your greatest accountment.
it was one of the
That was a
highlights
good
Way
of
better than
college
Circle
Yeah.
Church.
for me.
I just won,
Winning.
Emmys or something like that.
So I remember
Flex. All right.
how did we get into that? So we started. Oh yeah. So I
Running.
Oh yeah, running. I
Yep.
ran across campus and came to the dorm, and we were all of us except for Josh was on the same hall, and I was like, hey guys, like let's meet, and so we.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Second west?
Yeah. So yeah, we're second north.
Second north?
Yeah,
Sittner, second north.
Oh.
He
I
was
think
on
it
our
was
hall.
on your hall.
He was on
yeah.
our
Because
hall.
Josh was
that
across from me.
That
He
was
was down-
sophomore
he was
year.
down-
Sophomore
yeah.
year, so
Yeah,
Josh
yeah.
was.
Yeah.
This is all of our insider lingo here. Anyways, Josh and everyone, we actually ended up, I think, meeting in Anthony's room.
Yeah.
We were sitting on the floor, and I was like, hey guys, the awakening is ending. We've been talking about doing something for a long time. I think this is our chance.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, from there we started talking, and that meeting was in essence the beginning of Circle Church.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, I think, like, as you said, we were talking about it before, so I think, like, we were all feeling at the time lots of certain types of ways, I think, if I recall, like...
Yeah, so just to describe, Circle Church is a student-run church. It's run completely by students, and it was just a really cool thing that kind of thrived while we were there and has thrived since as well. So that's what Circle Church is. It's a really cool thing that continues to exist. But do you want to talk a little bit about like why?
Yeah.
What were we feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I mean, for anyone who's listening, like, if you've been in Adventist space, I think there is, at least on the Walla Walla University campus, I think there was a university church, and I think a lot of us felt at the time like, man, we really just wanted to like have a space to like worship and like have a space that we could like own and take ownership of.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I think we had done an afterglow for a little while, and we had in one of the spaces on campus at Walla Walla.
That's right,
We had done an afterglow, which was super fun. We just like sing songs after Vespers on Friday and worship. And we did it in a circle.
But we should before we get into, I think we should talk about like why were we so disaffected? Like why did we feel
True, yeah, we should
like
talk about that.
we should even do something like that?
Yeah. I'll talk for myself. I think for me, I felt as if I did not connect with the awakening, the student church from the past. I felt disconnected from it. I felt like it wasn't quite speaking to me. And I felt disconnected from the university church. I felt like the university church wasn't really for students. I remember feeling that way.
I think what happened with the awakening is it started off as a rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, it kind of the cycle of an organization, it kind of plateaued for a bit, and I think people came back in and led it, and they said we need to go back to our roots, and they went back to kind of that sort of trying to be rebellious and different. When I think we felt that probably why you felt disconnected. I think that's some of our discussions was like I think this campus just needs a church.
Yeah,
like it needs a church that's intentional and thought through and doesn't have to be rebellious just for the sake of it. And that's not I'm not trying to be negative on anyone who was leading the awakening at that time. That was just our feeling, I think.
Yeah.
So,
and part of it, I think, like I look back, I was so angsty at the time. Like I was real angsty, and I remember having different conversations. I can't remember if this was after you guys all left and I was there, or before. But I remember having some conversations where I was just like real upset and real angsty. And there was one conversation that I had with Alex Bryan, the lead pastor of Walla Walla University Church at the time, and I remember just telling him like to his face, he was, and I think he had a listening session with a ton of campus ministries, and he was like, specifically to the Circle Church group, he was like, why did you feel like you wanted to start this? And I was just like, oh, because like you don't care about students.
Wow.
I literally said that to his face.
Okay, hold on. I love Anthony.
Anthony
I was
also
a
maniac.
exaggerates the heck out of the things you didn't say that sentence.
That's true.
What did I say?
That's way too aggressive for you.
Is that
Anthony.
too aggressive?
I don't think you've ever said something that strong to someone.
I think I said because the university church isn't ministering to students.
That's not what you just said.
What did I just say?
You just said you don't care about students.
Oh, you don't care? Oh, yeah. It was less personal. It was not personal.
Okay.
It was not a
It was
personal
less
attack.
attack.
Yeah.
I don't know why I remember it so
We
personally.
just burned our bridge. No more Alex Bryan on the podcast.
Well, I mean,
now.
Alex knows that I love him. He's great, but
No, I think that is true though. I felt like
yeah.
the university church catered more to like the Walla Walla community rather than like students. It's just
Yeah.
very like traditional, not many students up front.
Mm-hmm.
I think we all actually really respected Alex Bryan and his speaking and his
He's
attempts
fantastic.
to do things that were meaningful for students, but the church experience as a whole
Yeah.
was not
Yeah.
something
It wasn't.
that I was
It wasn't
interested
inherently bad. It was just
No.
very like traditional and
It was
rigid.
high church.
But to be fair, name one university church where that's not true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty typical.
Probably like a lot of universities that don't have churches.
Purdue.
Purdue.
I don't know.
Seventh-day Adventist
Evergreen
University
Community
Church.
College in
You
Seattle.
didn't specify that.
You
didn't
said
specify
any
that, Sean.
university, Sean.
Exactly.
Everyone knows what
No, you're
I
right.
meant.
No.
I think
Sean's-
that- oh, sorry.
No, you go,
No, Josh, go
Josh.
for it.
Josh, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
So
I'm like, I
glad you
feel
did.
this is such a privilege to be a part of the seeking what they sought podcast.
Thank you for remembering
I got it
our
wrong
true
before,
name.
so I got it this time. But I think that, looking back on it, I think, we're in a very different place of life than we were then.
Yeah,
And so
100%.
back then, we maybe we saw it as angst and like, hey, we want to do something different. But now looking at it, me myself personally, is I think that we were really internalizing feelings of we wanted a place that was intentional, that had vision, that was forward moving.
Yeah.
And I think at that time there wasn't something like that on campus. And kind of going back to, the awakening, you talked about it, I think you hit it perfectly. It's the cycle of an organization, right? Is that, an organization, even the Adventist Church, I'm sure you guys have, that's ultimately what your podcast is about, is going back to the, so,
Yeah.
but the awakening started, and it started with those things: intentionality, vision, purpose, meaning, authenticity. Was like this movement forward. But over time, the thing that naturally happens is, it might get stagnant, or it loses that. And I think that we were looking for something that was all of those things, encompassed all of those things that would meet the needs of our generation. And I think so when we started Circle Church, that's what we were about.
Yeah.
But just like any, even, I'm sure we'll get in the conversation, like any,
We
it's
got
10
there
years
or
old,
something,
but
yeah.
you look at Circle Church now and it's very different than what it was. So I think like, initially we were looking for that, like we wanted more, what was more, and that was on our hearts. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of funny because I think we went into it like, we don't need to just like play like music you don't hear anywhere else, which is I think one of the staples that the Awakening had brought up. Like they were like, we want to play music you're not going to hear in Vespers or on Saturday morning, something like that, which is fair. Like that was their philosophy. But we're like, I don't know if you need to do that. I think we said we don't, but like I don't think we need to ditch the tradition entirely.
Yeah.
In fact, what if we took a lot of the things that are part of church that are old and dead to us, but then like asked ourselves why? Like it was all the way down to like, why are we doing scripture reading? And we had like a long conversation, like, why are we doing scripture reading? What's the point of it? And then we literally did that about, I think, almost every element we ever had.
We talked through everything we did.
Yeah, like why are we doing this? What's the point behind it? And what was cool is like, so if you showed up to church, to Circle Church, it was like, there was a lot of elements that were, you if you'd grown up in a Seventh Adventist church, you would have recognized, because it would have felt kind of traditional, but there was a whole different attitude around it, I think, which helped to breathe some new life into it. And then on top of that, we had like it was so cool. When we started meeting, we were in this place called the Black Box Theater, which is like an old, it was used by the drama department, and it was this old auto garage, in a sense, that they had, that was painted entirely black. And I remember the seating capacity was like 175. It was like on the door. I remember that.
Yeah.
And in the first few weeks, like we had packed, and it's not all about numbers. It was just one of those funny things where it's like there was like over 200 people in there. You couldn't move. And it's like,
It's too many.
so if there's a fire in here, everybody dies.
Yeah, there's no, he was not to code.
So
Pretty
crowded.
sure it was,
He was not to code.
How do we make
But-
this better?
but
Let's
it
turn
was
off
the-
all the lights.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was
Exactly.
it was funny because it was like this mix of tradition and like why are we doing these elements? Like we even asked like why in the world would we do music? Like we need to strip it down and answer the basic question first.
Yeah.
And Josh was in charge of music there. Eric was in charge of our like audio visual, the look of it, aesthetics, all that. Anthony was like
I just talked to
community, like
people and had
relational, like sort of pastor. Anthony and I kind of served in sort of like pseudo pastoral roles in that, but we had a team of 7 that was in this. Like we all had equal decision making power, and then Sean did something. Sean was our prayer coordinator.
Sean handled the prayers.
And then we had Judelle, or Shelby was at first our outreach coordinator, then Judelle, or actually Judelle was our outreach coordinator, and then she moved over to her service planning after Shelby had left. And it was just this really cool thing where it was all these college students working together on something that was, in essence, it felt a lot like church, but when you walked in, like the lighting was different. It was very intentional, like the stage design, all that stuff. Like we even set up the whole hallway outside.
Oh yeah,
Like this, like,
forgot about that.
yeah, where it was like, because we thought like in Disneyland, like when you go to Disneyland,
They like usher you into the experience.
well, like you could be in the hotel and the experience starts there, and you get on the
True,
monorail and you're already feeling all the way to Disneyland. Like, how can we help people come into church instead of like walking through a door? It's like, okay, now I'm here,
yeah,
but actually feel like the journey to
You're
like
transported to a
preparing.
different spot.
yeah,
Yeah,
Like that was in the what building was that even?
the
CTC.
CTC. I was
It
about
was
to
where
say
the
Technology
CDC.
Center.
yeah, it was where the
Yeah.
technology and automotive.
Yeah,
and all
but
that
like
stuff
when you were walking there, like it doesn't
It
look
was-
anything close to a church.
yeah.
But
Oh,
then you
yeah.
get into the hallway. We've got the different lights and banners and stuff that are in there,
Yeah.
and you forget like where you're at, which is
It
kind
was
of
really
that part.
cool.
Like you feel that you've been transported to a different space.
yeah.
Yeah. Actually, sorry, this is going back to what I said to Alex Bryant because I was pondering that as you guys were talking. I realize now, I don't even think I said that. I think what I said to him was, I don't understand why we have an orchestra in church. It feels like idolatry. I said that verbatim to him.
Mm.
I don't
That
understand
is a
why
huge
we
one.
have an orchestra in church. It feels like idolatry. It feels like we're just like making a performance for the sake of performance. And I was real angsty at the time.
Sean, how do you feel about that? Having been in the orchestra,
I was in an orchestra. I was in wind symphony. It's a very different,
so-
much less
Sean,
idolatrous.
you're gonna get
Sean is safe
technical with us.
for my attacks.
Sean, you gotta speak into the mic.
I'm not speaking to the mic. Sorry.
There you go. Thanks.
Sorry.
It's
Beautiful.
okay. We don't need
No,
to hear him. He's just blowing air like you did in Wind Symphony.
No, I see what you're saying, Anthony.
Yeah.
I see how it doesn't feel as personal. It feels like a performance. It is a performance. You're kind of, you go there to see Craig Scott play literally the world's best organ.
Yeah, he's insane.
I haven't
Yeah.
heard him match since. He was
He's
just amazing.
incredible.
And like there's a certain element of that, like in some ways you're being transported and it's spiritual, like experiencing good music and someone that knows what they're doing with, whether it's a good sermon or good musical performance or whatever it may be. In a different way, we were trying to do the same thing where we're transporting people into this different space, and it's intentional, but it was meant to be more personal and internalized than
yeah.
this is a performance. We didn't have a stage in the black box.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
all on the same surface.
Yeah.
So
All
the
seating. There were some
musicians,
risers in the
everything
back,
else,
but all the floor seating and
Yeah.
and if you were on the stage in quotes, it was all the same level.
and even the lighting itself didn't really, like, although there was light on the stage, so to speak, like there was a lot of elements, visual elements going on where it didn't feel like the musicians were the center. And even when the speaker was going, there was still enough going on that wasn't the focus either. It was
Yeah.
all just part of it.
And so we had there was like a section that was like it was to an exit door. And we were able to pull curtains across it, and then it was all black. So we had chalk there. It was a prayer wall.
Oh, true, yeah.
Didn't you
Yeah,
see that,
Yeah,
Sean?
Sean
was-
Do you want to talk about that a bit?
I mean, I think that everything we did with Circle Church was about having something that was more interactive. So
Yeah.
the prayer wall was something that allowed people to have input at church.
Right.
Which when you think about it, you think, oh, everyone has input at church, right? Well, not really. Not in an average church service. And not just at the university church. I think a traditional Adventist church doesn't always have that. Some places might, right? They might have something like something like a prayer wall. Most of, and this goes back to what Jesse said, there weren't a lot of things that we reinvented at Circle Church. We actually took elements that were already done. I think we just repackaged it in a different way.
Yeah.
And I think we tried to be more intentional about why we were doing those things. So the prayer wall, nothing's new about taking prayer requests. Like you've got in a traditional Adventist church, a garden of prayer time. You know what that is? Where people would walk up to.
That's a throwback term.
Come to the garden of prayer.
So,
You guys
like
just said two different lyrics.
That's okay.
Which is it?
It's Garden Alone.
That's what I thought.
While the dew is
Still on the roses.
See, you know better than us.
I love that song.
I know it better than all
I
of
hate
you.
the term garden.
Yes, Sean definitely knows it better than all of us.
I think though. Oh, sorry.
No, I
I'm-
was just
I'm
gonna. I'll
interrupting
finish.
your
I'll
thought.
finish with this thought. I was just gonna say, like the prayer wall, even the prayer times that we would do, or obviously we had a message. We would do community service, community outreach. Those are nothing new when it comes to church.
Yeah.
Conservative and liberal churches have always done those things.
Right.
But it did feel more interactive. It did feel like we had a lot more participation than the average church may.
Yeah.
Some people might say, oh, well, you're at a space where that's going to happen. You're on a college campus. There's a lot of people that want to get involved. But at the same time, I don't know. Maybe there was a certain element of we were intentional enough and that brought more people in
Yeah.
to this interactive church experience.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Josh?
Yeah, I think what you were saying, it was kind of in a way it was challenging tradition, not necessarily getting rid of tradition, but challenging tradition in the sense of like, okay, I remember one of the things that we talked about was like offering. I think we talked. Well, how do we say this is an act of worship? So hey, everyone, we're going to do the offering now, and we're going to pass around the bucket. It was like, how do we make this more meaningful? Hey, this is an act of worship. That this is a way of giving back. And so everything, and that was just an example of like everything that we did was always, how is this actually meaningful to your life and your spiritual walk?
Yeah.
Rather than just, okay, this is the next thing on
Start
the list.
offering time.
Yeah.
Pass the hands around.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember feeling that way, like we wanted to reconnect people and ourselves to the original meaning of why we're even doing certain like things, liturgies.
Like why even do church?
Yeah.
Why get together?
And as I think about it, I feel like it only turned out the way it did because it was an amalgamation of a lot of just our personalities and things that we were thinking. And like Josh and Jesse and I were all theology at the time, and we did a lot of worship music and stuff, and we had thought a lot about like stages and platforms, and like I remember we did Vespers and we'd like come off the stage, and like that was really important to us to like try and like not like be up front
When you
and
say
like
come off the stage, you mean like we would set up our like instrument stuff off the stage,
right?
So
like
the
there's
stage wasn't the focal point.
Yeah, we'd like try and minimize the stage being the focal point and try and like be united with the people worshiping.
Yeah.
And I remember that was important to us, was like, man, we want to try and like somehow minimize the like us and them kind of vibe and like make it more of an us all together.
Yeah.
That played a huge part.
And that was
circle.
that played into the name too.
Yeah, that's true. We never even explained the name.
True, we should talk about that.
Yeah,
We should talk
it was
about
Josh's idea. Remember that?
True.
Josh has come up with all of the best names in all of our friendship stuff.
Yeah.
Like everything. It was like Josh is like, hey, what about this?
I didn't come up with this podcast name.
That's
though,
true.
So.
Yeah.
The best name you ever came up with was Deline Sion.
Oh wow, that was Josh. That's
That's a throwback.
that's
Yeah.
a deep cut.
Go check
Sorry.
out Dorm Life on YouTube.
Don't check it out.
Oh no.
This is an office themed.
Especially if you're a student of Sean's, go
Oh,
check it
God.
out.
Oh, there it is.
One found it one time. I was like, Eric, make them all private.
Yeah.
Unlist them.
I think initially I came up with that in the shower. I
You came up with
all the
circle
best
in the show?
ideas are in the shower. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is.
This is a Josh staple.
It's a
of who
thinking
he is.
spot.
I write my best sermons in the shower.
Wow.
I remember it came out in the I came up with it in the shower.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then I brought it to you guys. I was like, hey, what about this name? And you immediately, all of you said, no.
Nah.
I
Yeah,
hate it.
I remember that.
And I said, okay, I understand that, but I bet you give it a day.
Josh the salesman.
and you will come back and you will like it.
Wait, even me, Josh? I'm always your biggest fan.
no, I don't
No,
think
you didn't like it.
any of
No
us-
one liked
I
it.
don't think any of us.
Anthony
did.
didn't
and then I
like
said
it.
it's going to grow on you. And then
That's
I think
fair.
a couple days later, y'all came back and you were like, yeah,
It's the best one.
we like this name.
Yeah.
And I think originally it came out of like, it came out of the idea that we didn't want to have, I mean, at least for me, this is kind of the cliche of where it came out. It was like, we don't want to be like the typical like revive or ignite.
One word.
We wanted to have something that was like less emotional, like
trendy or
like action word.
action word.
and more just like, we're not trying to be a circle church, you know. And then obviously it took on, you guys talk about it, but it took on a lot more meaning
that
other
was
than
funny
that.
because I don't know how much meaning you came to it with, but then the more we talked about it, the more meaning it ended up having.
Yeah.
I think for us it was like,
I feel like there wasn't
we're all equal here. Like even like that's how our leadership team was set up. And I understand that like the way it was set up at that time worked, and then over time to be sustainable, we actually had to move to a different model where it wasn't just 7 people who all had equal say, because that can get difficult. We
thought it was a good idea.
No, it was a great way to start. I think it started well. But that was a piece of it. And it was also like everyone's the same here. Like there's no higher point in a circle or anything like that. And then also I think and then someone else I remember one time was like, oh yeah, like it's like if you put Jesus in the center, like we're all equidistant from Jesus.
Oh, true.
Like we're like in essence there's equality like that. Like we're all here in this together.
It's almost like people took the name and turned it into something better than we ever had intention. And that's right. Yes, that is.
That's exactly
that is
what
so
we
good.
That's so interesting that when as it originated, we almost it had no meaning really other than sounding cool.
Maybe there's like a couple of things,
maybe there's a little
meaning.
Maybe there was a little
bit.
Yeah.
True.
But I think
it grew in meaning.
It
grew in meaning. But I think that's how the best things happen. Though.
Yeah.
They grew in meaning.
I think it was partly inspired too by the layout of the.
Oh,
true.
Yeah,
because
initially a circle.
Yeah, because we wanted to do a circle.
And then it got a little too big, so we had to do like a semicircle. But
true.
Yeah.
Semicircle.
Real quick though, just on you saying about how we started out all equal, like in leadership. I think I mentioned this to you before, but it's amazing that 10 years later and going through Circle Church and we're all still friends.
We're still friends somehow.
we didn't come out as like
we're not Mars Hill.
Like we were friends going into it. We were all like really good friends going into it.
Yeah.
And then coming out, we are all still really like I think that says
we spent a lot of time together.
Yeah,
we
a lot
really
of time.
did. And we lived together.
Too much time together. Like when you spend that much time together, just a lot of bad stuff happened.
We were all in class together besides Eric. All 4 of us were in class together.
Yeah.
And then we lived together.
Nearly all of us have lived together at some point. Like
we were either roommates with each other or all together.
Yeah.
And then we did circle together, which is like
guys, let's just all move to Nebraska together and let's just live there.
Had to choose Nebraska.
Corn Church.
Corn Church.
I don't know. It was the most random state I could think of.
No, it's great.
One of the crazy
Corn
things
Church.
about it was when we started, there was a definite need on camp. Like people were coming, and I remember one time after I think it was the second year, there was a guy who he did not go to church, and he said to me, "Circle Church is my church." Like he didn't go to other churches, and like this, and I knew him, and I think I played on like an intramural football team with him and stuff, and I remember that moment was like, oh dang, like this is like really meaningful to people outside of that. And I don't say that to pat ourselves on the back as much as like I think it was this really crazy moment where there was a need on campus, and I'm not trying to even claim like God spoke to us or God was specifically like gave us this idea or anything like that, but it just so happened to all come together where it was like this seemed to hit that for a large number of people, and we were running into that problem where it's like we had overcapacity most weekends for a long time, and it was also really cool to do ministry in a way that was like, I don't know, like we put so much time in it. I remember Eric and I, like when we changed up the hallway, we had to make it like you had to be able to flip it, because you had to go back to like stark white.
Every week we'd have to flip it.
Yeah, stark white, like
because it was a classroom.
Yeah,
space.
Academic hallway to like a colorful, like well lit. Like we had to pull lights out of the ceiling, like it was just crazy.
We kept lights above the ceiling boards.
I think in a 48-hour period, Eric and I spent like. It was over 24 hours in the black box somehow, like, or in that hallway,
so much
working
time.
on
the amount of hours,
and like, and that was just one time, let alone all the time like that we spent planning and all this stuff as college students doing this. And I think back to that time as like that was one of the coolest ways of doing ministry together.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun.
That it's so hard to match now because like
Well,
life is so busy. But
Yeah.
Let me even transition to that idea, what you just said,
Yeah.
which is like, and it's not trying to look at any measure of success by numbers, but we can say like something special happened there while we were
Yeah.
a part of Circle Church.
after we left, it's
Careful, his wife.
Josh's
we'll
wife
get
was a
into that.
pastor.
I'm joking
Yeah.
because of the way Sean,
No,
the
but-
way you phrased it.
No, but I've actually had people approach me because I've, at my church where I've been at, I've been a part of, I guess you call it the leadership. I've been on the board. I've been the first elder. I've been a part of leadership in church, and it's very different than what we had at Circle Church. Not because the church has a ton of problems, more than just any average church would, but we were there. We lived
Yeah.
basically at the church, and
Yeah.
and like what you described with Eric, and just the different things that we put, the amount of time we could invest into it.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
You don't see many churches that can do that.
Yeah.
So it's hard to imagine any church today really experiencing that again
Yeah.
without that kind of perfect storm of you have time, you have the passion, and that you need that little bit of angst, but also that desire to, recognize tradition and do something meaningful. And you also have a campus of people that are high energy
Yeah.
and looking for that.
Lots of talent too.
So then you just have this flood of creativity from not just us, but so many people coming in.
yeah.
And it's kind of that lightning in a bottle kind of thing where,
Well, but speaking of people,
Yeah.
like that was huge. We had there was the 7 of us that were on the core team, but we had
Yeah.
like 40 something volunteers going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
The amount of passion and heart and like time
time.
other volunteers
that other
spent,
people like it couldn't have happened without
this was
them.
our heart. Like this was like we put so much time into it because this is our thing. We started it. We loved it. All
Our
of that.
money.
Yeah, our
Yeah.
money
We
too.
put
yeah.
our money. It was
That's true.
it wasn't- this
We-
was
we
we
did.
should
Really-
clarify that this was not when we started this was not financially or supported by the university.
We weren't attached to any.
We weren't connected to campus ministries
it.
at all,
It
yeah.
probably actually was kind of looked like, hey, we'd probably rather you guys not do this, but
Yeah.
we went ahead
Yeah.
and did it. So lighting and stuff, that was all out of our own pocket.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that in a second, but like the volunteers, like this was our passion project, so we sunk a ton of time into it. But it was amazing, all of the people that came along,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
some of them would be there when we weren't there.
Yeah.
like setting up and tearing down, or
so many
planning
names
things.
like Shelby Shotwell, Amanda Eldovic,
Yeah.
Haley Davis, like
yeah,
Tiana, like
yeah.
so many names of people who just spent just nearly as many hours like helping and going out and buying snacks and
Yeah.
like
And all the people that were not naming, it's just crazy. And but what was also so Josh, just to go back to what you just said, it was interesting when the awakening was ending. I asked our chaplain, I was like, so what's going to happen after this? And I think I was one of the first people to ask him that question. I think he got tired of that question over time because people kept asking him like, well, what are you guys going to do? Because
Right, that was his
awakening was
response.
pseudo attached to campus ministries. It wasn't actually, but it was
Yeah.
sort of. And so people kept asking him, and his response was always like, what are you going to do?
yeah.
What are you going to do? And it was interesting because like that was the thing that we felt is like we can do something. Like we're going to do something. And it was cool. There's a couple of other things that happened. If not that year, like I think another couple of church plants or like groups that started. And it was really cool. I think at one time there was
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 different things happening on campus. We did like a joint service together.
Yeah.
Like, there was just a
That was
really cool
sweet.
thing happening at that point in time. But there was also the interesting thing where so we decided we were going to start meeting at a really weird time.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So the way that it works on the Walla Walla campus is you have the early service. There was like 9:30, and that
the
was
university
at
church.
the university church. The tradition, and it was like their contemporary service.
Right. They were supposed to be.
I don't know how it is now, so I will just talk about how it was. That was the service you went to, and Josh and I played for it a few times.
Same,
And like
yeah.
you go up there and you're like, this is dead as heck.
It was
Yeah.
painful.
Yeah.
So
It was like
painful.
it's like a church that can hold 3,000 people. There's like 800. No, not even that. There's
no,
probably
there
like
was
there's
like
like
100.
no,
there's
probably like 2 spread out entirely through
Yeah.
it. No one's like sitting together. There's no like
Yeah.
massive people. It's just people spread out through this massive church.
It was their attempt to have a we're going to offer a contemporary.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to do it though before any of the students are actually even up.
Oh yeah, no, none of the students are going to that. Like maybe
so
a
true.
few.
Yeah.
I mean, most of us were like 11:45 when the second service started. Like that's too late. That's
Right.
too early. That's too
Yeah,
early.
that's too early.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You can barely make
so-
that.
They're like scrambling.
But then there was this period of time. It was just Sabbath school, like at 10:30, and that was when the Awakening had started meeting. We decided we didn't want to meet at that time because the problem that started to happen for the Awakening is that people would go to the Awakening, and then at the very end of the service, when because they would play like 4 songs at the end of the service, which was a lot.
Forgot about that.
But about like halfway through that, half the church, half of the people attending the Awakening would just leave
Just get up
and
and
go over to second
Because they
service.
want to catch the second service. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was one of those like, well, this is weird, and so then it became this culture of consumption. You go
Yeah.
from one to the other, and then you go to the cafeteria for lunch, or you go to
It
someone's
was
house
as
for
if
lunch
the
after.
Awakening was like a Sabbath school, pretty much.
Well, sort of, but it was like I'll go here for my music, and then
Right.
I'll go over to second serve for Pastor Brian speaking, and so it just became this like I pick and choose, and what that does to us unconsciously is it makes it about us, and so we're like no, like well, we're going to force people to choose, not because we want to be better, but because we want people to commit to a place,
Yeah.
because we think that's better.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we decided, well, what time could we meet at? And we said, well, 11 or 11:15. Let's just compromise 11:07. It's weird. People will remember it.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that we
memorable.
11:07 was our meeting time.
Yeah.
But it was
Creative
interesting.
marketing.
Yeah, because it was
Yeah.
interesting because one time we met, was it you and I met with the president
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
of
You and
the
I did.
university at that time,
Mhm.
and we were talking with him, and he wasn't.
He wasn't stoked about it.
No, and he wasn't like mad, but he definitely was trying to encourage us, like, so we can have a cohesive, like everybody can work together, all this stuff. And I remember we were like, yeah, that's interesting. We'll have to think about that. I remember we walked out of there, we're like, nope.
Yeah. It's so true. And I mean, one of his concerns was I think he really valued intergenerational worship. Like that was really important to him, and he felt like we were kind of hijacking that in a sense.
But what's interesting is that keeps being like that's a thing that I hear at many churches is like, oh, like there's this thing that's successful and working for a younger generation or a specific group of people that like a certain style, and they're like, oh, well, you're taking away from this other thing. I'm like, I don't think we're really taking away. I don't think those people even want to go.
Yeah.
And if they are going, it's because it's the only option.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those things that I feel like we felt pretty strongly about. There's like, we want to choose. Like we want you to have to choose. If this is the community you're part of, come invest in this place, be part of what we're doing here, get to know people here, serve here.
Yeah.
Like not because we're better, but because the whole culture of consumption of like going from church to church is like killing our spirituality. I think is sort of what we felt.
We didn't want to be a church service. We wanted to be like a church community, a
Yeah.
church. Yeah.
Church body, yeah.
And that's so
That was
hard
important.
to create now that we're all in our lives in these own spaces. I'll just say for me too, as not a pastor, like I'm not, even though I've been a part of church, it's still, the church I go to is generally a commuter church, and a lot of, it's interesting here in LA, there's a lot of commuter churches because there's so many. I think I've told you guys before at the school I teach at, it's got 45 constituent churches.
Wow.
There's so many churches in, Southern California.
That's insane.
I mean, we have 2 separate conferences,
Right.
right?
'Cause
Southern
it's so-
California, South, like there's just so many churches. So it's easy to just kind of, a lot of people either church hop or they commute a long distance for the church that they felt connected to, which is fine. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it does make it limited what you can accomplish if, especially now in my phase of life where I've got young children, and it's hard to know how to really deeply entrench yourself into church and make it a community instead of just a service. Lately it's mainly been, can I get Olin to Sabbath school?
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like, when is nap
That's the
time?
win.
When is, like how long can we stay? And it feels like a service instead of community. Now I'm thankful that
There's a season for that.
yeah, there's a
but-
season, and I'm glad that I've spent years leading up to that, making
Yeah.
it a community for me and for Rochelle as well. But a lot of people don't have that.
Because that's the problem is like there's a season where it's like, okay, yeah, because of your season of life, like you're just kind of consuming from church, and that's okay. But I think for a lot of us, that's all it's ever been and all it might ever be. And I think that's kind of the problem that we saw happening at Walla Walla.
And some people would actually kind of the cynical side is like, after you leave Walla Walla, you're not going to have the same, like the worship experience you have. You're like, we had like what, 12 worship opportunities. We had to get credits, right?
Throughout the
Worship
week.
credits and most Adventist
Every night there was a different
campuses
worship
would have that, but
like
and we were
3
required
service.
to. But at the same time, like we had a wealth of resources and places we could worship every night of the week. And they're like, well, once you leave, like just wait till you go into the real Adventist world where there's a local church, and it's not going to be the same experience. So just get
Wisconsin,
and
which is a shame.
yeah.
well, yeah, but it's the reality, and people would say, we're almost like, oh yeah, you have success here with Circle Church, but it's not realistic. This is not the real world.
Yeah.
What we're doing.
That's how it felt, like interacting with the theology department on campus. Most of those teachers that I had, and I know Anthony and Josh were in the program too, but most of the teachers I had were really great people. And
I feel like we need to reiterate that, like, every name that we have named so far, like a lot of the stuff is so far in the past, like a lot of all the names that we've named so far, like when it comes to professors, president of the university, Alex Bryan, like these are all people we love, we
I
respect.
didn't say who the president of the university was.
For sure.
I didn't say
And
You're the only one naming names over there.
I know, Anthony. Who are you? You're out.
Jesse,
people.
it's almost worse not to say their name because it makes it feel more cold. I'm like,
That's what I'm saying is like, I'm totally fine to name names because Alex
John
Bryan knows
McVeigh
I
was
love
the
him.
president of the
and still is.
Yeah, and still is. And John McVeigh, like we love John McVeigh, and he
Oh yeah.
there's literally nothing negative.
The thing that we felt was that when we were in the Theo program, so we all the 3 of us, we had to do what was it called? It was like interning. In essence?
Internship.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's like 7 churches in Walla Walla, and you would get paired up with a pastor.
Mm-hmm.
You and probably another student would get paired up with a pastor, and you would intern at that church for like a year. And it was very different things in various places. Josh, what was yours? Yours was
Village Church.
Village, yeah.
Yeah. And what did you do?
Were you doing like visitations?
So Village, I
Revelation seminars?
briefly, my story was are we talking about, I was not allowed to.
Before getting into that,
we
what
won't
did
get
you-
into
what
that.
did you- what
Okay,
did you
I really
do?
want to get into that. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
We
No,
should.
at Village, so I was at Village Church, which was a church down the road,
Yeah.
very like senior, a lot of seniors,
Yeah.
and I was the interning with the youth pastor there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was an experience in of itself, but you also as part of the interning, you might get the chance, or they might ask you to like speak at the church service, right? What was the sermon that you got to preach?
Yeah, so
At the church?
I got to preach once, and it was during this time of like it was kind of like evangelistic, kind of like, and the one sermon that I got, mind you, I'm a 19, 20, 21-year-old single guy. I don't think I
remember
was
this
dating
now.
at the time, and
I remember
and
this.
they were like, hey, why don't you preach on why wait to have sex? Why and my audience was
so good.
like 170-year-olds.
Did you use any water bottle analogies though?
Oh,
What?
You don't
What are you
remember that
talking
from when we
about?
talked about sex?
yeah, we had our
Remember the-
on
remember
our
the-
Sex Before Marriage episode.
I don't remember water bottle.
I think I brought that up.
Like the
It was like the analogy that like I heard a speaker at camp meeting use was like he had like a bunch of people spit in a water bottle, and he's like, this is what you're doing when you have premarital sex, and then
That's-
you're giving the water bottle to
that's
your
always who I
future
know.
spouse.
Josh is that guy.
That's next level. Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so that was the experience. I know Anthony and I, we ended up interning at the same church, and it was like that one was better for us because
It's a cool experience.
we were like, we're pastoring a church already, so like we can't really be there on Saturday mornings, and that was cool because we got to, instead of being at church on Saturdays, we ran like a youth group for the local high school. That was a really
cool.
great experience. But Josh you had a different experience, and so if we hadn't had this pastor, it would have been tough because they would have wanted us on Saturday mornings, right?
Right.
And we were able to kind of get around that. I think I only ever entered the church service of the church we're interning at once that year.
I think I preached once. Oh, speaking of, I preached once at that church, and I was a maniac. I don't even know why I did this. I was only a recent theology major, because when we started Circle, I wasn't even a theology major.
Yeah, you were.
But I was only a recent theology major. I had like really little preaching experience, and I chose to speak similar, like at that church, 60-year-olds or whatever, and I chose to speak on like
That's middle age and Adventism, by the way.
True, fair. I mean, I'm halfway there already now, so. I chose to speak on like homosexuality for some reason.
Wow,
like I
you
don't know
chose?
why that was the topic I picked. I was like,
that's a whole thing.
let's love our LGBT neighbors. And I was like, I don't know why.
Never, I'm never coming back to this church.
At least three people talked to me afterwards. They were just like,
no, I'm saying you were never coming back to that
oh
church.
yeah,
like, I'm just gonna
that's how
drop
they
the
felt.
bomb and leave.
Yeah, true.
So we got to be at Circle every week.
Yeah.
But Josh had a little bit of a different experience where like you didn't really get that chance, right? But then even past that, so like that was a little bit different. But then there was the whole thing with the Theo department where the attitude that we were getting was kind of like, oh, that's cute. Circle is like a student run, and it's like it's a bunch of college students. Like there's a lot of involvement, all that stuff. This isn't the real world, right?
Yeah.
And I could see a little bit of that. Like, yeah, I get that this is a different thing, but like the attitude felt very condescending. I don't know if maybe that's the right word, but Josh, you kind of had experience, more so with that.
Very brief. So we had to do the internship and rack up a certain amount of hours at a church. And so the idea was, we're spending what 30, how many hours every week?
Oh yeah,
at Circle Church. It was like
30
between
hours
school and so that was our life. So I was like, we'll just intern. Circle Church should count. We're running a church and dealing with church members and volunteers. It's pretty extensive. And they said, no, you're not allowed.
Yeah.
And so I had to intern. So while I'm trying to continue running Circle Church with the team, with you guys, I was also having to be at my church or the intern church every week.
Yeah.
And so it was just wild where I'm trying to
a lot.
So I ended up, I would go to Circle. I actually go to my intern church for an hour.
Yeah.
And then I'd quickly change and run over to Circle Church and help lead the music. And that was just like.
Wait, you couldn't wear the same clothes at both?
No.
Suit and then change it real quick.
And it just was, it was really, really difficult. I ended up having to extend my internship because I wasn't getting enough hours. I should have just been smart and lied about it. But
like a good,
like all good
I look
pastors
back
do.
like, why didn't I just record more hours? Like it was,
But he did it. What a man of integrity on the
I
record.
had integrity, and but
that he regrets now.
Yeah.
He regrets
Regrets
it
and
now.
then going, and we could talk more about this because
Josh's future kids, don't be honest.
yeah. Hey, anyway,
Big waste of time.
But sure we'll talk more about this. But in short, looking back, the experience of being an internship was to provide me with skills, practical skills that would help me in my
Pastoral
real
experience.
career.
Which one have you used most?
And looking back, Circle Church has been the thing. I can't remember anything that happened from the internship. Probably more only
Except for the sex
just
talk.
weird experiences.
Except for the sex sermon.
Where Circle Church was the thing that I was able to bring into my ministry over I've been ministry now for going on 7 years.
Yeah.
And I've constantly been able to look back. Oh man, that's how we dealt in that situation.
Yeah.
Oh, this is what we did here. This is what we did here. And it actually translated really well into my ministry. So that was one thing, and then we can talk more, but I just wish there was more of an openness of like, it's not the manufactured, here's the mold you got to fit in. And it's like, hey, maybe there's something different happening here, and to foster that.
It's that weird thing where it's like, oh, the churches out there aren't like this. Yeah, that's true. And they won't be different than they won't be like what a church like Circle Church is or other student run churches that are on other campuses. They won't ever be like that if we're only learning how to do it and just maintain all of the churches that just exist and continue to exist and don't really get anywhere over time. Yeah. And I'm not trying to be mean to other churches as much as like there's just kind of a reality. It's like, okay, if I'm going to end up in like a 3-church district where nobody wants to move anywhere, okay, then yeah, you need to be trained for that in a different way than Circle. But like there's opportunity in it these days to actually go somewhere and try stuff. Yeah. And it was unfortunate. Yeah.
I feel like no.
I was just going to ask, so Jesse, Anthony, and Josh, you guys are all pastors. Sean, you are a Bible teacher.
I was basically a pastor.
How
Sean teaches history but barely knows it.
How has...
I'm just waiting for eventually that one moment of embarrassment to come to the surface.
Or sorry.
Sean knows the Old Testament better than any of you.
Sean does. He legitimately
Just the Old
does.
Testament.
Just the Old Testament. How has the experience with Circle Church influenced your pastoral career so far? Were the theology professors right somewhat, or did you prove them wrong?
I think
Screw them all, man.
we hate all of them forever. We all hold grudges.
Just John McVeigh.
John McVeigh specifically. No,
I've actually listened to this episode.
I think to some extent they were right. in that a university setting is a false, it's a false metric for what real church really is like. When you're not in a either an Adventist Mecca area or on a university setting. In one way, they were correct in saying that. So there was wisdom there, I think, that I couldn't see at the time because I was, as I've said, angsty. But I do think the level of ownership that we had over it, I think that's where maybe they underestimated and where they didn't really they which is fine, but I think perhaps they didn't see we actually we were taking full ownership of it. And I think that feeling of having full ownership of a ministry space is something that's almost intoxicating for me. It's really when you feel I'm part of a team and everyone is invested equally. We all are taking ownership.
And Anthony, you and I were preaching consistently.
Yeah.
Which gave us the opportunity to make a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, we learned so much.
Place.
Oh man, I had so many bad sermons, so many terrible, it was such a forgiving learning environment. And I think because of those things, learning what ownership felt like, for me, that was such a huge part of wow, I want this, getting a taste of leadership, like what you had said about Patty, the way that Patty McCoy,
Patty was our campus chaplain.
Our campus chaplain at Walla Walla, the way that he gave us ownership and the way that he was what am I going to do? What are you going to do? He just he empowered us and he gave us ownership. That was such a big part of my development of being able to see wow, I can do this. I can the feeling of being able to take ownership of a thing and then take it somewhere and see that God can use it. That was really powerful and impactful for me. So that's definitely, I think, how Circle has impacted me for sure.
How about you, Josh?
You go first.
I think I agree with Anthony in the sense that there is something right, which I saw back then too, which is this isn't a regular everyday. We don't have the patriarch of the church who doesn't want to go anywhere, or the matriarch who is is actually a very cool person, but doesn't see, how the next steps can work in a church, something like that. You don't have the situation where every single person in the church has a different idea of what the church is supposed to be. Because what we were able to do is establish what it was, and then other people were I like this, I want to be here, I'm down with where it's going. Whereas you walk into a church, another church outside of that, and the pastor leaves before you, and then everyone is well, I've always wanted it to be this, and I've always wanted it to be this. And then you walk in, and they're all kind of wanting you to make it into what they want. So you don't get that experience, sure. But I think for me, what I really would have hoped for, and I would hope for people in the future at Walla Walla and other places when they deal with the Theo department like that, is for for the professors to have been open and said, hey, this is a really amazing thing that's happening. Can I let's have a conversation about how some of this translates and how here's some of the stuff you may not be prepared for because of this. There was no mentoring in that. It's just it was almost oh, that's cute, that's nice, that's awesome. It
was almost seen as a threat in a sense.
Yeah, weirdly, there was some of that vibe going, I guess, but that was sad. But I think for me, one thing is ownership. But second was the ability to make a ton of mistakes.
Yeah, that was huge.
And to have stuff also succeed, and then to be able to walk into my career after that and say, I kind of know some things at least, not everything. I walked into pastoring very young and made a ton of mistakes, and will probably continue to. However, I was able to eliminate a lot of really dumb ones.
Yeah,
in a forgiving environment that.
Because we'd already made them.
Exactly. It's maybe don't start off your sermon with a shock statement just because you think it's going to shock people. I remember I don't think I actually said it, but I brought it to you guys. Hey guys, I think I'm going to start off this way. You guys are no, don't do it.
Oh no. We need to talk about this. I was the king of the shock statement at the time.
Oh yeah, that's you. Yeah.
I would get up there and be opening statement of the sermon, I looked at porn this week. That was literally how I would start a sermon. And it was so morose and dark and depressing.
Oh my God.
And everyone's ugh.
This is where we're starting. Where are we going?
And I would just be yeah, and isn't that just the worst? But the gospel says, and I would just go straight into
but it was stuff like that where it's you're around a bunch of your peers who, and we're all in kind of a formative phase. And so I think everybody, to some degree, unless you're making crazy mistakes, everyone knows that and understands that.
Yeah.
and I don't think you can recreate that elsewhere. Like and it also gave us the opportunity to vision for ourselves and say, like, where do we want to go, and like to be intentional, and then to take a lot of that stuff with us into a church and say, why are we doing this? What are we, I was able to go into my when I started lead pastoring, and like that was one of the first things that I started thinking of and talking to people about, like, why are we doing this? And granted, I made tons of mistakes at that church, but it was also a lot of the successes were from stuff that I had picked up from.
Yeah, and
running.
just to bounce off that before Josh goes, like, I feel as if now being in seminary and like taking a lot of classes about like church and structure and like progression of worship service, and really the word is liturgy, that we were doing a lot of liturgy stuff. Like when we were thinking through liturgy without even really knowing that was what we were doing, we were just sort of like fumbling in the dark. But we were like,
literally, because it was so dark.
True, we kept it so dark, which was kind of cool.
We did like a communion service where
we had
we had like one mic hanging from the ceiling,
and we had a single lantern,
and
right?
with one light bulb,
a single light bulb,
like hanging from the ceiling,
pitch black,
and then everything around was black. And I remember we looked at it, we're like, this is so cool.
Yeah,
and I remember being up there with a mic and we're talking, and there's people trying to find their seats.
Yeah, no one could see anything.
This is dangerous.
Even then, we knew like this is a bit too much.
It was too dark. Yeah,
we just went with it.
But it looked so cool, though.
Afterward, it'd be like, it was
cool.
too dark, wasn't it? But it looked so cool. But yeah, I think being able to like experiment with liturgy without even knowing that's what we were doing, like, and we'd be really intentional about like our blocks of the service. Like we'd have like introductory prayer, like what do we call it? Prayer of invitation. We had prayer of invitation, and then we had worship, music, and then we had the message. We had offering, we had giving, and then we had the message, and then we had prayer time, and then we had like what we call the fourth piece, which was like some different creative element that we would do.
It wasn't so much that we had a specific, we just always would try to do.
We would try,
something
right.
that was outside of the music, scripture, prayer.
Right, like trying to break the mold in some way.
Whether it was like we would put people in four corners, or we lit up the four corners of the room with like different color lights. Remember this, Eric? You don't remember this?
Not at the top of my head.
And then we asked different questions. We're like, if you are a dog person, a cat person, a fish person, then go to these different colors. And then we had people talk. So it was like we did as a community building thing.
I remember that now.
Or we did. We would do like. One time we were like, oh, this was the craziest. One time we were like, we're gonna just have the opportunity right now. If you need prayer, we're gonna take 3 people. If you need prayer, we're going to invite you up here. We're going to pray over you.
Come to the front.
And we're going to have a time of silence where the entire church is praying for you at that time.
Yeah.
And this one girl came up and she was just like, I was cutting myself like this week. And so she started off like you, Anthony, like in a sermon.
Yeah. Except hers was not shock value. She was really sharing.
She was genuinely struck. And like, and it was one of the most beautiful moments where I think you and I were up there, or was Sean? I don't remember.
I forgot.
We prayed over her verbally, like with a mic, and then we stopped. And it's like, as you look out and everybody has their head bowed, and they're praying over this person.
Just surrounded her,
time to come together as a community.
That was cool.
And like that was the stuff that we got to try. Those are some of the fourth piece stuff that we tried. Yeah. Sorry, but
no. All that to say, like, I think again that benefited me in such a powerful way, because years before I ever went to seminary and talked about liturgy and progression through service, thinking theologically about a worship service, we were thinking theologically about a worship service without even really like realizing it, and just sort of like we were able to just experiment with it, which was really cool.
Yeah. I think that for me, I think any career, I think the training that you do during school is never sufficient enough for the real world. So I don't think, like, looking back, so I don't want to just say, this is specifically to my 4 years of theology, because I know this is in every career it's like that. But I did feel like, looking back at my 4 years of theology and internship, and I don't think any of it really prepared you for the real world. And the real world is, bottom line, you get out and you learn to swim. However, looking back, if anything I had to take, like kind of what I was saying before, it was the experiences at Circle Church, which has benefited me now in the different experiences, the different churches I've been at. I think that some of it was learning. One of the big things I think was learning, like, I think stepping out in faith. I think for us, we were wanting to do this, but it took eventually saying, all right, we're doing this no matter what. We don't know where the money's coming from. We don't
Yeah.
know if we have enough time.
That's
We don't
true.
know if anyone's going to show up or anyone wants this.
Yeah.
But we just at some point decided this is where we feel called, and we're stepping out in faith.
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
that was a huge, thing. And even now, I think that, in my career, it's like looking spaces where I need to step out into where God is calling the church and moving forward. The church always has to be moving forward. Where is God calling us?
Yeah.
I think second, it was timing. Learning patience and timing was huge because I think like looking at Circle Church, the times where it's been the most thriving and big is probably when none of us are after all of us.
Yeah, after
It
we all
wasn't
left.
us.
Yeah.
And so it took time.
Numerically, it's one of the
Yeah.
We wanted,
Mhm.
it took time for it to become established and to grow and looking at it now, it's at times, I think it's been thriving even more than when we were there.
Yeah.
And then I think the other thing was just learning, I think dealing with people, I think a little bit. We did deal with that, where I remember meetings where we'd go in thinking that everyone was gung-ho with
Yeah.
what we were wanting.
Hour-long
And then all of a
disagreements.
sudden-
Yeah.
all
Well,
of-
the big one was relocating. Remember
Yeah.
that? Remember we were looking. Remember the one where we were trying to like move to a bigger space?
No. The one I remember the most is when you all
2 services?
when you all left me out to dry. That's the one I remember the most.
Wait, was that 2
we were
services?
like, we're like, should we go to 2 services?
Yeah, sorry.
So
I think we did, yeah, didn't we?
So
I didn't
here
know how to
I
be
am
assertive back
leading
then.
this meeting. We had all talked as a core team, and I'm like, okay, we're all on board. And then we get to the thing where we
To the vote?
Because
Were we taking a vote?
we got all of the volunteers together and said, hey, this is what we're thinking.
Right.
And there were several people who were very vocal about not doing it.
They were anti, yeah. Mhm.
And then all of every single person who was on the core team said nothing. I
Yeah.
was just out there like,
You got
well,
awkward.
thanks guys, I
Yeah.
appreciate this.
We were
I-
convinced.
I literally
but-
remember talking to you beforehand, and you were like, Anthony, are you on the same page? I was like, yep, I got you. I'm on the same page. And then we get in the moment, and you're
Yeah.
just like, does anyone have anything to say? And I was just like,
it's just
Yeah.
silent.
nothing.
But in all realness, so they're like the fact of the politics of dealing
Yeah.
with people and,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and emotions and
Disagreements.
personalities, and it's like
Yeah.
Jesse was kind of our fearless leader, right? And so it was like he had to navigate. We had to navigate the different
Yeah.
But that was actually a really interesting for me, is because navigating that, not being a experienced leader, personality wise, maybe being like a leader, but I'd made a ton of mistakes and was not the leader that because I was a de facto, I was the one who would in essence coalesce us and say hey, let's try this. But it was really, we all had equal decision making power and we'd all have input. It was really a cool dynamic. But that was a whole thing of another thing. It was just making a lot of mistakes, not just in preaching or something, but as a leader.
Yeah.
And I feel bad for some of those, because some of those are not things that I had fixed by the end of it. I still had those problems, but I can look back and be like, I messed up. How about for Sean and Eric, you guys, having been involved in a place like this, in a place like Circle, what has it? How
What
has
has
it
Circle
helped you
Church done
outside
for
of
your
it?
tennis game, Sean?
I have nothing clever. I was like, I've got to have something clever.
You're a teacher.
Something clever.
You're a teacher. You teach religion and history.
Yeah.
For middle school students.
I'm sorry for that question, Sean. That's completely unrelated. I can't even think of a connection that could possibly.
Just causing a racket.
Yeah. It's causing chaos. Nice.
You got it. It was a little delay. There was it's like an audio delay right
Sorry,
there.
it took me a sec.
No, but actually for teaching, but also just being at a church as well, both of those. The biggest thing was just the fact that we did it. Not even the because I'm not going there as a pastor, using sermon ideas or even, there were pieces of how we did Circle Church that I suggested to our board, or hey, let's try these things or these program, whatever it may be. But for me, it was more just the fact that we were all uncomfortable and we wanted something more.
Yeah.
And that attitude stuck with me, and being around people that wanted the same thing, that encouraged that, because you could be a theology major at Walla Walla and go pretty much the entire time at the school doing nothing.
Yeah, ministry.
Nothing.
Yeah.
You could make zero spiritual impact on the campus and get your degree. That's not against Walla Walla. Like you said, you get any degree and it's not the full real world experience. But the fact that we were in an environment where everyone wanted something more, wanted to do more, it stuck with me, so that when I get to a new church that was in the real world, where we have the real problems of, we have families and this is not our job. We don't live on a campus. Some of us commute up to an hour away from this church. it still forced me to think, well, how do we at least take pieces of what worked so well and try to bring that in? How do we make this feel, even though I go to a small church, creating even more connectivity, by introducing something like Bible studies and other things that we could do. So the same thing at the school as well. It was just like, how do we make Bible class not fully just this academic, thing that you have to do? It was, and I haven't perfected or made, I haven't solved all those problems, but the fact is I'm still working at them when so many aren't. You just kind of do the status quo in church or at an Adventist school. And what we did was, I think we proved that if you are intentional, you can make a difference. Even though you could say it wasn't in a real space, whatever you want to say, it's possible. And it may not look exactly the same, but if you do something, and it's messy, but you're actually trying, and you find other people that want to do the same thing, you can make a difference.
Wow.
And a lot of people don't. I don't think a lot of people still believe that.
Wow.
I think
that's
it's really
what's
easy.
scary.
It's really easy to just you just survive, and I think that's what Circle was for us. It wasn't surviving. It was like, let's try and.
We're
And
trying to push
if
back
it
against
wasn't
that,
for that experience for me, at least, I would have probably. It was good being around this group because it pushed me out of a comfort zone. It was easier to think like, let's just kind of go on. Let's just kind of finish our college experience, do the fun, stupid things that we all wanted to do, which we still did.
That was the craziest part about all this, is that other than Josh was like in his own little, like, I'm not part of stupidity world. But the other four of us one time we all piled on top of each other.
Oh, I was not involved in that one.
You weren't. Sean, Eric, and I, like, I think someone's on the ground, someone jumped on him, and then the other, and we got stuck together. Physically could not
just a human
get ourselves apart.
A human ball. Ball of bodies.
Like the way limbs were intertwined, there was a couple. That was our friendship, and we would make the stupidest jokes. We were very immature in a lot of ways, but then it was funny because then all of a sudden we'd switch to this very like
we'd come back.
We'd switch from like all of that, and it's the way our podcast is. It's like chaos, but then all of a sudden, like, there's this really meaningful thing, and that was really cool to walk through, and to still see how God like used us with all of the chaos that we were, and but there was something that we could do that was like actually like meaningful. But one of the things I want to say is, so Circle Church, the content was solid enough, but I got to say that there was something about it, which is like the aesthetics of it, that played a massive part in it. And granted, we were in a theater, like there was a lot of stuff we could use, like there's a lot of lighting and all that stuff. But Eric, you are probably one of the most unsung people,
an unsung
have
hero,
been involved in Circle, at least from that period of time, because that place looked so good because of pretty much you.
It did. It really did.
Thanks.
And we learned from our mistake, because now after every episode we thank you.
That's why we thank Eric.
We should have been doing the award-winning thing after each church service.
Like back then.
What was that like? How is that played into? Because I mean, you were helping. Like we like you and I did work a lot, but like you were the one who was really the visionary, the one who's. But like we were running sound, lighting,
doors hoisted from ceilings.
Yeah.
We hoisted a door from the.
Sorry to the drama department for not asking permission to drill holes in one of their props and take it from the ceiling.
We borrowed their props all the time.
Oh man,
that's true.
But like there was like at one period in time we had like luggage on the stage, and it that sounds weird, except it looked really cool, and
we liked it. Yeah.
This was all Eric. Like all of that stuff. How has that played a part into you today?
Boy, I mean, I think as far as like the aesthetics of Circle Church, that was something that we kind of all brainstormed as a team and looked at the resources we had with, props in the drama department, and kind of, just what creates a space that feels special, that is unique, so that when you can come here, you kind of can easily, it's like the sanctuary, like creating a space that feels set apart.
Yeah. Wow.
I think that was something that was a priority. Obviously, it was like, it's twofold with the luggage, for example. We're like, wow, this looks cool to start with, because it's like vintage luggage, and but also, it kind of has some metaphors with like bringing our baggage and putting it at the altar. I think in terms of takeaways for me, from our time with Circle Church, I think it's twofold. One, so far in my life, I'd say it's, our time at Circle Church is like my spiritual high.
Wow.
I think part of that is like, just being so, because it was like life consuming.
Yeah.
It was like school and then like Circle Church probably like underneath, because we spent so many hours. I think part of that is being involved in the ministry. The parts,
Eric, for a lot of us, I think it was Circle Church and then school.
Yeah.
You were always a
Amen.
good student.
My
The rest of us.
this is true.
Yeah.
my GPA tells me Circle was above.
Circle Church,
For me.
school, Tim Tiffin's math class.
What you're saying,
Very
Sean and I,
bottom. Yeah.
More in troops. Oh man,
we struggled through that
Get
class.
that green bar.
how's
Oh,
middle
Josh
treating you?
too.
I was in with Eric.
Oh,
That's
you're
right.
there.
Josh and I were in math together. That was,
Oh,
I remember that.
that was rough.
that was a fun time.
Teacher.
No, but I think there's something just so unique and special about being like with a group of like, we were such close friends and we all had a common goal, and we all, college is sort of this like time where you're finally taking ownership of like your faith,
Yeah.
and like doing that in an environment. And I think that was part of why we started Circle Church, was because we felt like there wasn't a space that was encouraging people to like,
Take ownership.
take ownership and like, maybe not experiment's not the right word, but just like explore and like discuss and grow together.
Yeah.
And then what was my second thought? I think it kind of is what Sean said too, but if you see a need, like you have the power to like fill that need, obviously with like help of others and with God, but
Agency. Yeah.
I think just that experience of like being able to, maybe I'm just a student, but we can make this really cool thing that has somehow lasted this long.
Yeah.
And that's like a good confidence booster and like experience going into your professional career and personal life.
Yeah.
It's really easy to be critical of the Adventist Church, which we've done our fair share of being critical of the Adventist Church.
Adventist Church sucks.
We definitely
We're
have.
talking about the offshoot Adventist Church with a lowercase a.
Yeah, the
yeah,
lowercase
sorry.
a.
Not the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
No. That's awesome. That's perfect.
But we've been critical, but at the same time, we found a healthy outlet for, let's do stuff
Yeah.
Yeah.
instead of just criticize it, which a lot of our peers and our age group did. So, we throw the people like the theology department, others under the bus that did the status quo, whoever it would have been, the leaders. But at the same time, like they were on a campus where they were probably pretty used to just people criticizing and rebelling and doing stuff that maybe didn't stick because it wasn't the right heart or space. And so I think we hopefully changed that way of, that perception of you can do things differently, but it's still with the spirit of what our church is supposed to be. And it's
Like be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah, like you're being changed, but it's for the right reasons. The right heart is behind it and the spirit's behind it.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, has always stuck with me is, if we're going to criticize, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
Same like what Patty said, the
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
thing, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like what you just said about the heart, that reminds me of what Josh, you said you took away, which is something, I don't know, it's almost like, to me, I think something really powerful I take away are all the hidden moments that like really only like we know about, like the moments when it's like 1 a.m. and we're just like in the black box and we're just like so nervous about the next day because we're like, we made this thing, we don't know if anyone's going to care.
Like the first day. Yeah.
Yeah,
The
and
first
so
Friday before.
Yeah, we just like all of us like in the black box like praying together, or like the hours and hours we spent like in prayer
Yeah.
in like the prayer house or in our dorm rooms, just like praying and just like God, we don't know what we're doing, but like we're just going to trust you. We like, and I think that was really like what you were saying about the heart. Like I think perhaps a lot of the faculty, maybe they saw like a group of students are like, oh, they're just rebellious, they're cynical and they're just trying to do their own thing or whatever, which is fair. As I get older and now I have like pastored younger people, I can see that. And so I empathize with
You're
them.
so cute.
I understand them now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that was one thing that maybe we weren't even good at showing or communicating. But I think really at the end of the day, like we actually just genuinely cared about like communicating the gospel in a way that was meaningful to to our peers, and that was like actually a really big burden on our hearts. And like we actually really cared about that a lot, like more than anything else. I think more than anything else in my undergrad career, that's what I cared about, was doing that through Circle. And that was that I feel like that has affected me going forward. I think I'm only really a pastor in the Adventist church still because of that. Circle.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
And even the whole idea, you know, you're talking about just, you know, we started it, and where was I going with that? Give me a second here. I like you.
Prayer. The heart.
Stepping out
in faith.
Oh no, being critical, but yet doing something. You know, don't just be critical, but do something. And I think that is, you know, there was many obstacles, and people like, you know, like people, okay, whatever, you're just the kids doing whatever. Yeah. But the fact of the matter, we just did it.
Yeah.
And the rest followed. The affirmations, the support, the money, it all followed, you know, to where, you know, Circle Church, it's an official student-led church,
student-led ministry
of, I was going to say Loma Linda, Walla Walla. You know, the pastors or student pastors that are paid now. And that was, you know, because
it's a long journey to get there.
Because it wasn't listening to, oh, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Oh, this and that. It was, hey, you know what, this has to happen, and no matter what, we're just going to go forward and do it, and the rest will follow. And it followed.
Yeah.
I know Anthony has to leave here soon to go to the airport, but as we kind of wrap this up, one of the things that I wanted to talk about was the what followed us. So what was really crazy about this is we had to go through a process of giving it away. And I stepped down, and then Anthony, you carried it on for 2 more years after that.
Because I was a 6-year senior.
Yep. I wasn't going to say that.
Super 6.
And you carried it on, and then you passed it off. And then what's amazing is that it's gone through several iterations of leaders since us, and it's kept
several
going.
handoffs. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that, at least for us, that we wanted to continually communicate, we would say even to this day, is that the main thing is not to do what we did.
Yeah.
Other than continue to be intentional. Like that's, I think, the thing we kept passing off is like, always be intentional about what you're doing in a sense. Because if you're doing that, then you can do that for your community as it is today. Because like, I mean, like culture shifts so fast.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things that even like, we said that to the people that we pass it off to, but then I think it's even true for like, for you and I, Josh, as we're with Anthem, or Anthony's your pastoring, or Sean. It's like wherever we're at, the intentionality of why are we doing what we're doing? Who are we doing it for? Let's always ask that question. Why are we doing what we're doing, and make sure that it actually matters? Because then it's like Circle, what it is today is not is a lot different.
It's not the same
than what we were doing. But what it is today is meaningful for the campus that is there today.
Yeah.
And if it was just trying to maintain what it was, and that's part of the problem that churches run into, is that they're still doing it for the people, and the problem is because those people can stay for 2 decades.
Yeah.
They just die.
I don't know.
The camera.
I think our video just died.
That doesn't matter.
We're probably through.
People can stay for 2, 3, 4 decades at a church.
Yeah.
And then people stop asking why we're doing what we're doing because 40 years ago maybe they asked the questions, but they're not still. And so I think it's like applicable. That's one of I think that was. Am I correct in saying that was like our main thing that we're like, take this with you?
Yeah.
You can
100%.
take everything else. You can change everything else. Just take this with you.
Yeah. I think my very last sermon, I talked about the question why.
Yeah.
And I talked about how like, really when we started this thing, it was really just because we were all just like, why? Like why? Like why are we doing what we're doing, and what does it mean? And if we could be intentional, if we could somehow like strip everything away for every part of the church service, everything we do in church, if we can't even answer that question, if we don't even know, then why are we even doing it?
Yeah.
If there's no actual reason. And I think we all just, at least for me, maybe I'll speak for myself, I was craving a reason to do everything. Like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Like, why are we doing outreach? Why are we doing offering? Why do we sing these songs?
Sometimes we'd make really slow decisions. Be like, we should do this. And then it would take an hour or 2 of conversation and then maybe another meeting the next week before we even really settled around to like, why are we doing this? And so it was slow.
Yeah.
But I think it's what kept a lot of the meaning in it.
We had some difficult meetings
Yeah, where we
through
all
that process
disagreed, or
where-
some
yeah.
of us disagreed.
Yeah.
But I think always having that question in front of us,
Yeah.
it kept it meaning something. And I think for those who come after, or those who came after,
Yeah.
that was like the thing that we was like, just take that,
Yeah.
take that idea. I always ask why.
And it is ironic that we're still friends. Like what Josh had said, like we had a leadership team where we all had equal voice, and we had so many like we had moments of disagreement, tension, different visions of the way we
Remember when
wanted things to go.
kicked Sean off the team?
Wait, did that happen?
Yeah. We had a secret meeting.
That's
where
not
we almost-
real. That's not real.
No, I just left early. You know.
I was gonna say either that's not real, or I was late, or I was.
Yeah.
That was, I think that was probably the biggest reason
That was probably
that we had any tension. Is because it'd be like, oh, setups because
Set-
we would
set
just
us
set
at
up at like
6:30.
8:45 or whatever, and it's like Anthony, who lives with us, is still not ready.
Where is he? Who is he?
And it's-
I've been here for an hour already, just busting my ass. I don't know if I can say that on
Sean,
this
Eric's gonna
podcast.
have to-
Is that
We've had our swearing
Okay.
episode, so
It's
it's okay
okay.
now. After
All right.
post swearing episode, we can say whatever we want.
I was
You're
gonna,
talking about a donkey.
Yeah,
Um,
Balaam's mule.
yeah. I was gonna say, and kind of talking, letting go
Mm-hmm.
and talking about the cycle and the
Yeah.
newness of things, like how it was birthed out of this sort of like this space of, man, we something's missing, we want
Mhm.
more,
Yeah.
and there will come a time when Circle Church needs to move on and pass
Yeah.
away
Yeah.
for the birth of
For
something
the
else.
birth of something new.
And I would hope that, through this experience, I realize that as I'm getting older, you're saying like we see these kids coming up,
Yeah.
right? But I hope to have that mindset of being able to recognize that passion.
Yeah.
And instead of saying, well, you're on your own, but I hope that I can be someone that can let my ego go. I'm
Mm.
60 years old and I've done this, and
Mm.
hopefully I can let my ego go and my preferences and be able to say,
Wow.
man, there's something special happening here.
Mhm.
I want to
Mhm.
empower you
Yeah.
to go out and live out what God has called you to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've also taken away from Circle Church
Yeah.
and kind of
Wow.
coming around is that we were those passionate kids who didn't
Mhm.
know fully what we were doing, but we knew we were going to do it no matter what.
Yeah. We cared a lot.
And to be that older person now looking down
Mhm.
at these kids that have that passion, to be that person that can empower and say, yes, I'm
Yeah.
here. I want to support you. Let's figure this out.
Yeah.
It's almost as if that in and of itself is like, because if you think about it, if we didn't have the space to do it, like even what you were saying, Sean, where it's like the benefit for me wasn't even necessarily that I now take those things and put them into my teaching, but just the fact that I did it, and it means, and so now I am formed into somebody who wants to be involved and be
Yeah.
an integral part of my church,
It was formational.
and I want to be part of it moving forward, not just be there,
Mm-hmm.
like that in and of itself. It's like for us, we're going to be the older generation. We're already the older generation, but as we continue to get older, we're only going to be more of the older generation.
Yeah.
To have that space where it's like, yeah, what that younger person is doing isn't perfect, and in some ways maybe just sucks, but
Yeah.
because I mean, people should have said that about some of the stuff I did when I was young, but it's like, but them doing it in and of itself
Mm.
Yeah.
is a meaningful
It's
thing.
a win.
Yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
win that then maybe when they are older, like when Eric first was making videos, it's like, okay, like this is okay.
Yeah.
But then now he's won Emmys, and I say that jokingly because they're local Emmys and so they don't matter. But
Oh, really? They're local?
there's just like Southeastern California.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter at all. But no, but
So
no,
good.
I'm actually serious. I'm actually serious. Like you've won awards for doing something that is not just well done, but a meaningful thing as well. And
Yeah.
that was stuff that all of that had a part to play in
Mhm.
building in you. It's like that might just be one of the things that we're forced in our futures to be like, oh,
Yeah.
kid, that sucks, but I'm going to let you do it because I had the chance to do something, and what you will become someday
Yeah.
as a
Yeah.
result of having that opportunity is much better. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's crazy.
I was having a conversation with some older church leaders, and I was kind of talking about a similar topic about this. Like,
Did you tell them they didn't care about young people?
I didn't tell them you don't care about young people. That reminds me of you remember the Kanye West George Bush doesn't care about black people when he came on the news and just said
Kanye West is
Kanye's a whole nother
He's
topic.
National treasure.
that.
Let's do a podcast on Kanye.
Yeah, true. But I
Seeking what in the world is Kanye talking about?
literally we could have We could have a whole episode on Kanye, but I remember sort of saying a similar thing because I've come to truly believe, like what you were saying, Josh, like when someone younger is coming and is saying like, hey, like I'm really passionate about this thing, I want to do this thing, it feels like a threat to your ego. It feels like a threat to what you're doing because it feels like they're trying to supplant what you're doing or they don't value what you're doing. Yeah. When in reality, like being able to give them that gift of even failing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like because Patty gave us the gift of being able to even try and like fail, I think it's the only reason that
Sean, just say that to your students. I've given you the gift of failing. You get like an
the gift of failure.
This is a gift of failing.
This is a gift. Well, yeah, I truly think it's a gift. And so in some ways, even for us passing it on, because I was the last one of our original team at Walla Walla, and I think even passing it on, which was hard, because I was like, man, this was kind of our baby, like our thing that we put so much time into. Like
at 24, you were like an old man.
Yeah, I was so old at the time. It
was our baby.
It was our baby.
And then we all went out for milk.
Yeah. It's so good. Anyway,
like the father that abandoned. Like what? You don't get it? Like
you guys don't know about
you
that?
heard the idea, like,
like
oh, dad went out for milk, so
he never comes back.
So never came back.
It's like, what is that reference?
That's
I've never heard that.
That's a very white expression.
Is that an American thing?
Black people don't say that.
He doesn't get it either.
Yeah, or Josh doesn't get it. It's because we're Canadian.
Yeah,
that's why.
Our daddies don't go out for milk.
Anyway,
just for ketchup chips.
In handing off a thing, sometimes it's really scary because you're like, I made this thing that means a lot to me. What are they going to do with it? And I think that's really the irony is you can't know.
Yeah.
It's a mystery. And even if they run it to the ground, to me, it's a gift.
Yeah.
Like it's a gift to them. Like, because as long as they learn something, whoever comes next, as long as they learn a thing.
But what's amazing is that it's still going. And you see videos of what's happening there. And there's people, there's engagement. There's the numbers are, you know, talk about numbers. It's full, but like, that's not even really it. It's like, it's the fact that young adults still feel like this is a place where I can be at home in a church environment. Like that's huge. And that's not a testament to us. That's a testament to the people who have been coming after us. And so one of the things that's really humbling to me is recognizing like, cause I think I've struggled my whole life with having like I'm an important complex, like, or I want to be important. And one of the most humbling things is recognizing like we played our part in this. Like I get that my part to play in this was when I heard that I ran across campus like, guys, here's our chance. Right. But after 2014, I've had nothing to do with it. And what it is now is not because of me. It's because of God and people's willingness to follow him and what they're doing. And so we get to look back and it's like, wow, like this is really amazing. But
it's cool.
We had our part to play, which is we set it up. But what it is today is not because of us. And that's a really like humbling, but really like it's that thing where you think about like Abraham being promised something by God and he never got to see it. Yeah. And you're like, that's a rough gig. But you almost see it now, like a little bit of a piece of that now where I'm like, I don't get to see, I'm not there every week. I'm not there at all. But there's that promise like, okay, we let go, like you let go. And then what God does with it is completely separate from you. He's still God. He's still king. I don't have my hands on that. But we also get a part in it. Like it's just a really cool thing.
And same thing with like Moses, like leading all the way through the wilderness and then not seeing the promised land. It's like, it's just that old cliche. Like some of us like plant the seed, some of us water, some of us grow, and some of us see the fruit. Like I think that's really true. And you realize like, even if you weren't there to see the fruit, you're just as loved. Yeah. Like you're just as valued. Like it doesn't have anything to do with your, like, but it's tempting to think it does. Like if you weren't there to like, when it's like killing it.
Yeah.
It's like
But, so I want to ask one last question. This might be sort of not everyone will understand everything we're saying, but I want to have this opportunity. What was your favorite memory? It was 10 years ago is when we started this. What was your favorite memory from the years that you were part of Circle?
That's hard.
Setting up and Eric playing garbage songs on the loudspeakers, like Looking for a City while we set up.
Or the Pop-Tart cat thing. The
Neon-
cat.
Space unicorn?
cat.
Oh, yeah.
It's nonsense.
Rainbow
Neon
bunchies.
cat. Rainbow bunchies.
Yeah.
We were so obnoxious.
We were, I don't know how.
You guys were. Josh and I were.
Josh
would
Anthony
leave.
wasn't.
Josh
Josh would leave.
Josh during a
Would
long
we get
weekend
too crazy?
would
Does have
drive
enough
back to Canada
to get away from us.
to get
True.
away from us.
Yeah.
I have so many good memories, but I don't know, a couple off the top of my head are there was 2 times where it's like Friday night, we just like setup went so long that we couldn't go to Vespers.
Mm-hmm.
It's like 11 p.m. and there was like 2 different nights. One that I just like jammed with Anthony,
Yeah, that was a
playing like
That
I
was
think
a
I was
good-
playing keys, and then jamming with Josh once
that was so fun.
on the drums. And I'm not a good musician at all,
It
but
sounded
like,
good at the time.
I like to dabble a
I
little bit.
wanted to leave, but
It's one of the
It's
times
just-
you went back to Canada.
It's just good times, just
Yeah.
It was.
really good memories.
Yeah.
Just like I'll say it in serious note, like the fact that we had real moments with people where they would,
Yeah.
it blew us away. Not just the people that would like the first day, are 3 people going to come,
Mm-hmm.
but then also that it transformed where you would have so many meaningful conversations happening in the hallways before church, after church, during church, like the story you gave, like there's a lot of examples of that happening.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that blew us out of the water, like that actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually seeing like God use you.
Yeah.
Somehow. Yeah.
I think one of my favorite memories was, this is kind of random, out of a whole host of them, this is just one that sticks out. There was a girl, part of the youth group that we were part of, Anthony, during that interning period,
Oh, yeah.
and she needed help. And
She
we
needed
actually
a lot of
brought
help.
it to Circle Church. We're like, hey, guys, there's this girl who needs help. And I don't remember how much money we raised. I genuinely don't. But it was several $100s, if not over 1,000, from a few from like 100 and something college students. But
Yeah,
one of the craziest things I remember from that was we made that call, and this girl, as I walked off stage, this girl was she came up to me and said, will you still be taking donations after? And then she came back with like several $100s.
Wow.
This is a college student. And she came back with several $100s and gave it.
wow.
And I was just like, it made me realize, like, people will talk college, like young people, they're losing the values of church or all these
They
things.
don't give
I'm like,
tithe. Yeah.
I'm like, no. And there's some truth, I will say, like there's some things that may be true about some of that conversation, but it was one of those moments where it was like, this is a real church of people who are like, I have been saving this for a time where I can do something like this, and I'm just going to give all of this.
I see a real need, a real person who needs
yeah,
it.
and then there was other moments of like when that one girl came up on stage, we were praying for her, and the whole church is praying for her. And that moment sticks in my head because it was like we all, not just those of us who are leaders or involved.
Yeah.
Every single person in that room got to be part of church, like not a service. They got to be part of church, and that was those are a couple of my favorite memories.
A couple of mine, I think. One of my favorite things we ever did with Circle was actually after you guys all left, so I'm amazing and you guys all suck. No, it wasn't even my idea. But
I'm cutting this out.
we did prayer meeting. Sean, were you still there? We did prayer meeting?
Sean and I graduated together.
Oh,
You're
true.
saying after, like,
Okay.
no, we were all gone.
Actually,
Okay,
all
fair.
4 of us graduated
We all
together.
graduated the same year,
Okay, yeah,
except
yeah.
for you.
Sorry. I was a 60
Josh
senior.
beat us. Josh was first.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, yeah. Josh was ahead of
No,
everyone.
he graduated with us, though. He ended early, but he graduated
Oh,
with
that's
us.
True. Okay, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It
But-
was just you.
It was just me. So one of my favorite things, we ever did was good old fashioned prayer meeting, and we did that. We experimented with midweek gatherings and stuff throughout the years, but we did like a Wednesday night prayer meeting, and we kept like a big journal, and we just like wrote down prayers every week, and then we like prayed about them, and we read through a couple Old Testament books like Joshua and Judges. I don't know why we read through Judges, like that was. And it was really powerful. It was like, like we saw God answer prayers like in a powerful way, just by like keeping track of prayer requests and stuff.
Wow.
That was, yeah. And then the other one was all the way back at the very beginning, the night before our very first Circle Church, when we dedicated the Black Box. I think that was one of my favorite. Well, we had a lot of different friends there. And yeah, we all just like, we just prayed a lot, and I remember all of us feeling like we had no idea how it would go.
Yeah.
We were just like, that feeling, Josh described it so well earlier. I can't say it as well as he did, but that feeling of like, I'm going to say this a different way. As you do ministry more, you grow in competency.
Mm-hmm.
You feel less and less of that, I need God to show up or this will fail,
Yeah.
because you become good enough that you can just do it without God, frankly. Whether that's music, preaching, anything. Audio visual stuff, videography, anything. And I think at that time we were just so young and we were, just green, I guess, in a sense. We'd done ministry before, but not in that capacity that much. So I think we all were just like, we felt like almost like a, God has to show up or this will crash and burn. And I think I miss that. And that was a really meaningful time because he did, like, people came and it ended up being meaningful. And that was the greatest gift I think we could have have. Yeah. So
I think, kind of tagging on what you said, I think one of the times that stands out to me, still stands out, was, this is more personal, I think, but there was one that kind of going back to like how we were just a bunch of guys that needed the Lord to help us. We
did.
But I remember
in more ways than one.
Anthony was supposed to preach that weekend, and the I think it was a different band was playing, and we were backstage. I don't know if you remember this, but and you're about to go up, and I remember you sitting in the back looking at all of us. We're all kind of huddled around you. You're like, I can't go up. I can't do this. I just can't go up there and preach. And I remember, I feel like this, however you want to describe it, the Spirit came on us or something, and we were just like, no, Anthony, the Lord has called you. We don't care what you're feeling right now. You may feel mediocre, not good enough or whatever, but the Lord has called you for this moment, for this time, to go up there and share the word. And it was like this Spirit hype moment. And I very clearly remember this. And then and Anthony, you went up and you preached an amazing message and showed people Jesus, and it was this moment of like, it kind of just like, that's where we were. We were just a bunch of guys that, like, at times we were like, oh man, what are we doing? But yet we were all there in it together.
Yeah.
Wow,
and supporting each other and pushing it, and the success of it was because we each had our different gifts and talents, and we were all pushing each other forward, and so it was cool. The brotherhood.
That's really meaningful.
I was going to say
that, Josh.
I was going to say I forgot because actually I think the moment I've come back to consistently, my most favorite moment was we had one of our core team leaders is Judelle, and she was very quiet.
Judelle is awesome.
She's awesome. She's now married to one of our friends, which we should absolutely take credit for.
Yes,
100%.
It would not have.
They met through Circle, 100%.
You're welcome,
Judelle,
Paul.
Yeah,
Judelle,
Paul,
exactly.
got you.
We're welcome. Yeah, sorry for Paul, but yeah, you're welcome to Paul. So I remember she was very quiet and she was doing outreach, and that was something that I think she was doing well, but it just didn't seem so natural. And Shelby, one of our other core team leaders, she ended up saying, hey, I think it's the right time for me to step away. And we really missed her. But now we had this void. And so it's like, well, Judelle, do you want to, I just remember one time it was like, well, who could take this? And you and I were talking, Anthony, I was like, what if we tried Judelle? Like, what if Judelle stepped in this position as like our service, our church service program coordinator? I remember the first day that we were in our green room where she was on, and she goes, okay, everyone. And I was like, whoa.
It was like the loudest we'd ever heard Judelle.
Judelle, who are you? And she ended up being like, she
killed
just
that
stepped
role.
into that role,
Yeah.
and she almost seemed to become more fully like who she was. And I still think back to that moment, and I'm like, that was one of the coolest moments of leadership I've ever had, just to watch someone step into something and get to be part of that. But I think maybe it's appropriate to finish all of this off by saying what we did was amazing, but what God did through Circle as a whole, all of the people that were involved, through us, yes, but through the people who aren't here, through the volunteers, through people that we still have, like there's a few down here at Loma Linda that we knew that served at Circle and all that. And then to even say just a huge thank you to those who have come after. And then, and I think it's appropriate for us to say, like, we are so grateful to see something that is thriving, not because it's about us, but just as like what we got to be part of, continuing,
Yeah.
it is like watching your child.
It is.
letting your child fly free, and then to see them succeeding
Just
in the world. It's like
blossom.
that's what it
Yeah.
feels like about that service,
Yeah.
about that church. So I'm just glad we get to be part of it, guys. I'm thankful for all of you, and I'm thankful that we get to have this conversation. So
What a gift.
I love you guys.
I
The love
you
is
too, man.
mutual.
I love you too.
It's good to be together. Doesn't happen very often, does it?
This hasn't happened in how many years? In a number of years.
It's been 84
Many
years.
It's a lot of years. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. We appreciate it as usual. Before we rush to close here, just wanted to pause for a moment and recognize a couple people that were really, really meaningful and a part of our Circle Church core team in the early days and throughout. And friends of ours, Shelby and Judell. They are both really, really awesome folks, and they were equally a part of our leadership team. I think we made a joke during the episode about it being a boys' club, which maybe in some ways it was, or we treated it like it was, but in reality, the ladies kept us in check. So in preparation for this episode, we actually reached out to them to sort of give us a few of their thoughts, why Circle was meaningful to them. And I wanted to read those for you because we really felt like it was important for both of their voices to be a part of this episode. So I'm gonna share what Judell had said. She said, "It seems like just yesterday, Jesse's Facebook message popped up on my computer and caught me off guard. He said that he had heard that I was interested in helping with Circle Church. I responded that I was, and he said, 'Great, welcome to the core team.' Shock and hesitation followed as I reluctantly decided that I was going to have a leadership role in Circle, as I was initially only interested in having a supporting role. Little did I know that decision would later impact my career. Now I'm a teaching principal. Yep, and I ended up in a leadership position." So one more from Judell. She said, "Circle Church was one of the most rewarding things I did in college. So many fond college memories are associated with Circle Church. It has helped shape who I am and how I approach the world today. But most important, I met my husband, Paul, through Circle Church. And to that, Judell, we just want to say we are welcome. We are welcome. We fully take the credit." Oh, man. Next, Shelby. Shelby shares, "My intentions for Circle Church was always to give people a place to worship God in freedom and to help the body of Christ grow bigger and stronger. Our God is so good. He deserves our reverence, honor, respect, and praise. It's amazing when you have several hundred people in one room doing that together." She also shared, "What an experience. My intentions for that church were pretty simple. Let God's love fill me and then let it overflow into the lives of others. Unconditional, unimaginable love, acceptance, grace, forgiveness. That's what I always wanted for Circle Church. It wasn't always perfect. I wasn't getting things right every time in my leadership role, but we always tried to let God lead. And that was imperative." I really love what Shelby shared, and I think it speaks to a lot of what we all felt at the time. Man, wasn't perfect. We weren't always getting things right. But man, God is good, and man, did we learn a lot. So thank you to Judell, I almost said Judell's previous last name, but Judell McCormick, and to Shelby Bell. We appreciate you. We love you. We miss you guys. And man, beautiful, beautiful things. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Seeking What They Sought. Before we end, just want to thank Eric once again, our fantabulous tree climbing expert, our 10-time tree climbing champion of the world. We appreciate you. We love you. And thank you for doing what you do. You know what I'm talking about. Much love all. We will see you next time on Seeking What They Sought.